NATO was one of the big stories for this week, and a Prime Minister who seems to have copped the moniker Air Miles Albo, who could criticise him, but he does do a lot of flying. He's been off at NATO. He's given strong support for Ukraine, certainly rhetorically, but is there much substance to it?
Well, 30 Bushmaster armoured personnel vehicles sounds great, but really, I think, like most NATO leaders, he's quite happy to talk the talk. When it comes to supporting Ukraine on the ground, of course, he's not going to walk the walk. And after the best part of 18 months of this conflict, Ukraine is still fighting it alone, notwithstanding the financial and the weaponry support. But I think it is a very important meeting, and I don't begrudge the Prime Minister going to it. I think it's important that he does represent Australia's best interest. I mean, a few months ago when this was first being mooted, they were going to send Penny Wong, and I think that would have been the wrong message. It is a prime ministerial thing, but I think it's an interesting time, as I think Andrew Urban pointed out on Flat White during the week, that the Pacific Four, Australia, in South Korea, Japan, and I don't know why, but nonetheless, New Zealand have been invited across to Vilnius and to participate with NATO in this meeting. Shows that there is a realisation that a Pacific alliance, a grouping of the West, is just as important as the Atlantic alliance, which is NATO. And I think it's very important that Australia has been recognised as part of that, and more to the point that now that AUKUS has got a bit of skin or flesh on the original bones that were announced by Scott Morrison and Joe Biden and Boris Johnson at that stage. I think it's important to say to the world that Australia is prepared to stand up for global security, particularly in the face of despots, tinpots and crackpots like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. So I think it's a good thing that he is there. I think in terms of NATO itself, as a number of contributors in our world section over the last few days have been pointing out, I think America, Joe Biden in particular, are sending mixed messages, mixed signals to the Ukraine about their participation in NATO and their recognition and embrace by NATO. And certainly Mr. Biden has been saying that, no, they're not up to it yet. No, we won't have them in. We'll support them, but we won't have them in the club. And well, it sounds like blackballing, doesn't it? But I think also the United States, doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat or a Republican at the moment, I think have ambivalent views about their international relationships. And in a sense, I think there's a real concern in my mind that we might see, at least in their foreign policy, a return to their semi-isolationist days of the 1930s, because Donald Trump, if he is re-elected next year, is probably just as ambivalent, if not more so, about these alliances than Joe Biden.